No to any growth that attracts wealthy new home buyers into the area or more tourists, but yes to growth that improves quality of life for the families that live here. And again, very strong results, a strong majority, again, a ratio of 3 to 1, say that it means no growth that would attract the outsiders, but yes to the growth if done in the right way. We asked about the impact of zero growth. Over the last 10 years, there's been no growth, and in fact, there's actually been negative growth if you take into consideration the level of folks who have left the area. And we asked, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And again, I don't want to focus on each level, but if you look at the nets, those who say it's a good thing to those who say it's a bad thing, another strong majority here saying that that's a bad thing, that zero growth, negative growth, that's been a bad thing for the area. Then we talk about jobs leaving, I'll read you the question wording. It says, most of the growth and jobs coming into Oahu are going to other parts of the island and are not coming to the Koolauloa district. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And again, very clear, people are saying that it's a bad thing. Moving on, we asked about support for housing. And again, I'd like to make sure that you understand the context of the question wording. One location in the Koolauloa district where there is sufficient land for the necessary infrastructure to build new affordable community housing for the people that live and work in the region is in Meilekahana. Meilekahana. Thank you. Mahalo. And as you can see, another strong majority are supporting the idea of using this area to build new housing. Next, we talked about the Koolauloa District Sustainability Plan. And again, I'm going to read this. I apologize for reading slides, it's never fun, but I want to make sure you appreciate the question wording. The current Koolauloa Sustainability Plan, which directs county plans for future growth in the region, has space reserved for affordable housing located right behind the BYU Hawaii campus. BYU Hawaii has stated that that location will lock them in and make it impossible for them to grow. They have also said that growth is necessary for them to become sustainable in the short term and remain in the community, which of the following best describes your feelings about this situation. And people have the option of saying that the Koolauloa Sustainability Plan should not change, or that it should choose another location. And again, a very strong majority, especially in Laie, are saying that it should find another location. Real quickly, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm only going to talk about the top 4. These were a list of about 10 to 15 different growth strategies that one could possibly employ in an area that's going to sustain a large amount of growth. And we asked, just real quick, do you agree, disagree, strongly, somewhat? And at the top 4 strategies that the folks of the Koolauloa region agree with is encouraging walkable neighborhoods, preserving agriculture, encouraging more affordable housing, and preserving open space.
George, can you pull back at all?
Lastly, this is something, this is actually a piece of data that we pulled from the community workshops that we did, the instant audience response technology. So this was about 400 community residents who came and participated in those sessions, and those 400 plus respondents, we asked them, based on what you currently see in the community and looking out into the future, how many new housing units, apartments, townhomes, or family homes, if any, do you think are needed per year to support the Laie community and surrounding areas? And so those 400 folks at the community workshops, they said an average of 61 new units per year. So with that, I am going to turn it over to President Stephen Wheelwright. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and neighborhood board members, thank you for letting me address you. I'm Stephen Wheelwright, the president of BYU Hawaii. We're one of the entities that are part of the Envision Laie project. Let me just, if I might, give you a brief summary of kind of who we are and then why this is so important to us. This is, most of you have seen our campus. The campus has been there since 1955. We own the land around the campus. The campus has 2,400 students. We come from over 70 countries as a campus. But our primary target area, you'll look next to the bottom bullet, is the Pacific Rim. That is Hawaii, the South Pacific, and the Far East. We have over 20,000 alumni. We offer 24 degrees. And our partnership with the Polynesian Cultural Center is really central to the university. We have over 700 students who work, and that's how they help support themselves. And this is particularly true of the international students. Our mission has remained the same since 1955. It's not changed. The two major elements of our mission, one is to integrate both spiritual and secular learning. That is, we're interested in educating the whole person, not just the academic side of who that person is. The second is that we want to prepare students with character and integrity who can provide leadership in their communities, their families, in their profession, and in building the kingdom, which is part of the university's mission as an LDS institution. We have three imperatives, and these have been clearly our focus for the last several years and will continue to be. One is to continue to improve the quality. This isn't because our quality is bad, it's because the world that the students are going out into is becoming more competitive. And so we need to have them better prepared for what they're going to face. The second is that we need to continue to lower the costs, and I'll come back to that one. And the third is we need to serve more students, and I'll mention that again in a moment. All three of these, though, work together, and we find it's very easy to address all three in a compatible sort of way. Let me just show you the cost. Now, any of you who are parents or have brothers or sisters or yourself, you may still be paying off some student loan debt. You understand what's been happening. But these are our costs as a university. On the left side, so the left side over here, this is the cost, the annual cost to a student. You'll see that the blue part, this is the tuition. That's actually a small part of the cost of being a student. As everybody knows, you have to pay living expenses, room and board, insurance, books, all of those other things. Those costs have doubled, more than doubled in the last 14 years. On the right-hand side here, these are the annual costs to the institution. That is, this is how we fund the expenses of the university. Again, you'll see that the blue part, that's the tuition part. For us right now, it's 11% of our budget. So we don't get much of our budget from student tuition. The next category is donor funds, that's 17%. But for us, the major portion is the LDS Church. That's who supports the university. That's where most of the revenue comes from that we need to run the university. Now, one of the things that's essential to our sustainability is being able to gradually grow the university. I'm talking about adding 100 to 200 students a year, which would be in the 5 to 10% range. This is the range that most universities, when they grow, that's the range they can accommodate with faculty, with staff, and it's a gradual growth. But the advantage of growing is really several-fold. One is that it provides you with the funding so that you can reinvest in your facilities, so that you can keep your science labs up to date, so you can expand where you need to, so that you can replace facilities. Another advantage is that it allows you to spread those fixed costs of facilities across more students. And still another advantage is that as you grow, the cost to the student themselves can come down. So for example, in our case, we can put housing on our land, and we can rent to a married couple, for example, where a husband or the wife might be a student, or they might both be students. We can rent to them for about half of what the cheapest rental would be in the community. So that's all part of the cost, though, of running the university. Studies indicate that BYU Hawaii is not sustainable and cannot continue as is. That is, our facilities are 50 years old. Most of them were built in the late 50s or early 60s, and we're going to have to replace all of those over the next 10 years. To replace them is going to require a substantial investment. But if we can do it while we're also growing, that would allow us to spread those costs over more students and thus prevent the costs from going up dramatically for the students or for the university. We have some chairs coming in that will allow people to sit down here. Hopefully they'll come in quietly. Second is we need to replace all of our single student dorms. Those are the oldest part.
Ask you to wait.
For 5 minutes.
Well, due to time constraints, you know, we urge you to be able to bring in those chairs as quickly as you can, but due to time constraints, you know, the presentation must go on.
Okay, I'll keep the microphone as close as I can here. I mentioned that we need to replace all of our single student dorms and expand our married students. We expect that almost all of our married students will be on campus as soon as we can begin expanding, because it's so much cheaper for them in our housing than in the community. We need to increase the percentage of students housed on campus. That is, we expect that all of the growth in our student body will be housed on campus. We don't expect to be putting larger numbers of students when we grow into the community. We'll still have some students, but all of the incremental growth would actually be on the campus. And finally, we need to provide faculty and staff with affordable housing. Now, this is the current Sustainable Communities Plan, and you will see, so this is BYU Hawaii right here. This is the Polynesian Cultural Center. And back here behind the campus, these 3 designated areas here, in the existing plan, these areas, this one is designated for housing, community housing. This one is designated for community housing. And this one is designated for light industrial. We are requesting, and that's the part of this request, is that those things be moved to Malekahana so that we are not constrained by that housing and that light industrial that keeps us from growing. So all of the existing growth areas would lock in our campus. This is what we are proposing in the mix. So let me just briefly, this is the academic core. Now this is the existing academic core, so we want to reserve space for that to expand. But obviously housing, we don't want to have high rises. We want low rise, clustered buildings that have flow through air, low energy buildings. To do that, we need more land to do it on. That's why there's so much area designated for married student housing, for single student housing. And then we need to provide some flex space. So we would actually give part of our space to the PCC so that they would have room to grow as well, as they need to grow to provide more jobs for our students. So land is critical for our sustainability. We want to designate the land surrounding BYU Hawaii for future expansion of the university. And we'd like the current city designations behind the university, we'd like those to be relocated. That's the request the university is making. Let me now turn this over to President Vaughn Orgill.